Hey guys, what's up? We're back with some more WarFrame action, and today I'm going to go and do a brief review of the Madurai Focus Tree. So, this is Madurai Focus as of Focus 2.0, which of course came with Plains of Eidolon. Overall, I think it's an improvement over the previous Madurai Focus Tree, which was a little bit iffy here and there, but for the most part this is way more fun to use, and obviously with general focus changes being that you don't have to wait a bunch of seconds, like 300 and plus seconds, before you can actually use any of these abilities, that makes this tree like so much stronger than the old tree. But at the same time, I think it needs some improvements, as some of the abilities kind of don't feel like they're doing enough. And I'm doing Madurai specifically because I have pretty much maxed out everything on Madurai except, of course, the way-bound nodes, which will take a lot of time for me to actually get them to max. And otherwise, you know, as a concept, I can pretty much understand how strong they're going to be. So we don't really need to deal too much with that. So we'll start off with the center node, which is Phoenix Talents. Physical damage increased by 25%. Already this is like really good. It's not like overpowered. It's good. You just jump into operator mode, jump out of operator mode, suddenly all your weapons do 25% more physical damage, which is great. Awesome. Phoenix Spirit. Elemental damage increased by 25%. So when these two come together, obviously it means that your weapons just automatically do 25% more damage overall. That's why I really like using Madurai with Oberon. Actually, I like using Madurai with pretty much anyone, but certain frames require certain things, which is where Madurai doesn't really help with those frames. But for someone like Oberon, Madurai, perfect. Right, let's do Void Radiance. Consume 50 energy of leaving Void Mode to blind enemies for 10 meters, within 10 meters for 5 seconds. So with this ability, it's a little iffy to me because in order to actually, you don't really get to choose if you want to use that that blind. It just happens if you have enough energy. So I think we need a way of figuring out if we can figuring out how to use Void Radiance while we still have a ton of energy, and also not use Void Radiance if you have a ton of energy, if that makes any sense, because it just happens automatically, right? And to some extent, like, sometimes I need it and then sometimes I don't need it, but when I don't need it, it's really irritating because I end up just blowing 50 energy for no reason. And that's 50 energy on the circle, like not 50 shooting energy, obviously. It's a little different. But that, you know, like it's a great blind for 5 seconds too. Like that's decent. When I need it, it's great. But when I don't need it, it's really annoying. And I'm just blowing through 50. And sometimes I press control, so sometimes I go into void mode very quickly for some reason, and then I come out of void mode, and then I go back into void mode for some reason. Like, sometimes I do that, and that burns through all my energy like immediately, and that's also something that I think needs to get looked into, because just using it like that is just yuck. Void Strike. On leaving void mode, the next attack deals 12% additional damage for every second spent cloaked. Cloak consumes 2 additional energy per second. So this is, like, as a concept, this is really good, but the numbers need to be higher. The numbers need to be higher, basically. So when you go into void mode, and you stay in void mode for as long as you want, when you come out of void mode, there is a counter on the top right that'll tell you, like, how much additional damage it is, whether it's 1.1 times, so 1.1 times, so you stayed there for like a second, you get 1.1. If you stay there for like 10 seconds, you get 2.2. You stay longer, you get higher and higher and higher. But because Madurai doesn't have that high of an energy pool, that's something you could probably get with Xeneric and the Waybound node. But because Madurai by itself doesn't have that high of an energy pool, you end up sitting there for, I think, like I think you're only able to be there for about 10, maybe 15 seconds at best. So you end up with an additional damage calculator of about 3-ish, something like that. So you know, that's kind of it's cool, but what that also means is like this is used immediately after the first attack you do. So this particular node, I think, is only useful on bows and sniper rifles, because if you use it on or shotguns, actually, bows, sniper rifles, or shotguns, basically any heavy damage, heavy bullet slow shooting weapon. So not your Soma, not your Boltor, none of those guys. Euphona, Lens, maybe those kind of weapons, this might be useful, but even then the damage increase isn't really enough to warrant sitting in void mode for like 15 seconds, because when you're in void mode you really can't do anything, and if you use an attack while in void mode, that actually brings you out of void mode, albeit temporarily, but that bringing you out of void mode, that basically counts as the amount of seconds that you've been in void mode, and if you go into void mode again, it basically resets, which is also a bit of a problem. I think either, well, first definitely increase the additional percentage every second that you stay cloaked, and secondly, I think what needs to happen is if you go into void mode, come out of void mode, and then go into void mode again, that should not reset it, because you are essentially investing a lot of time into void mode where you really can't do anything. And if you use an attack while in void mode, that also takes up the charge that you've already built. So, you know, I think that kind of thing could be buffed to be relevant, per se. Alright, we'll go into the E talents. The E talents. Flame Blast. Void Blast releases a fireball that deals 200% of the Void Blast damage and explodes after 0.6 seconds. Okay, this is really cool. It's basically a Shoryuken, Kamehameha, Sekiha, Tenkyoken, however you want to call it. But this is the fast one, so it's just boom, boom, like that, boom. I'm not sure if you can see that, boom. It's cool, right? It's cool, it's fun, it's a ranged Void Blast. For what it's worth, it's great. I think between Flame Blast and Rising Blast, which is the next one, what needs to happen is a damage increase, because outside, I think it's like really only useful on level 50s and below. Let's be generous and say level 60s and below, and they have to be not Grineer. Like level 60 unarmored units, they can die to this pretty decently. Level 60 Grineer and other armored units, they just tank through it like it's nothing. So you know, that's also does heat damage, so I guess it's better against infested in some way, but it works primarily against armored units. Armored units just ugh. So I think that needs to be something that needs to be looked into. I think an increase in damage so that it's useful even in like super duper late game. That's something that I think DE should consider. Rising Blast. Increase the damage of Void Blast by 100%, and it can now be charged to deal additional damage. So I don't know how much additional damage it deals. Like, I haven't got ahead and done the calculation, but it's a decent amount. Like, the difference between Flame Blast and Rising Blast is very noticeable, so at least Rising Blast does well on that. So I don't think Rising Blast itself needs to be buffed. I think it's just Flame Blast as a whole just needs to be buffed, and Rising Blast will effectively be buffed in tandem with Flame Blast being buffed. But yeah, otherwise I think just as it's on its own, it's fine. It's more just a Flame Blast problem. Blazing Dash. Now we're going to go into the dash talents. Blazing Dash. Void Dash leaves a trail of fire that deals 1000 damage over 14 seconds. So 1000 damage per second, sorry, over 14 seconds. Because if it's 1000 damage over 14 seconds, this would be absolutely useless. But it is 1000 damage per second over 14 seconds, which basically means it's 14,000 damage over 14 seconds. The thing is, 14,000 damage over 14 seconds is not terribly high, I think. Like, I have plenty of weapons that do way more than that in barely a second. I think Soma Prime does way more than that in like a second. So I don't know. I feel like it doesn't feel like it's doing a lot of damage. Plus, I don't find myself void dashing into people often. So, and it's heat damage as well. So it also gets mitigated by certain flesh types and armor types, and I think shields as well. I'm not 100%. I can't remember. So I think Blazing Dash could probably use a slight buff. Maybe 2,000 damage a second over 14 seconds. Well, I guess that's a massive buff. It's 100%. I don't know. I don't think it's doing enough damage. Meteoric Dash. Void Dash deals 400 extra damage to enemies. That's meaningless. The idea is you Void Dash into someone and it does 400 damage against it. That's actually like meaningless. I don't even. I've maxed it out just to see how well it is, but this is ultimately like really pointless. Like, at least now though, having this node on doesn't increase any cooldowns or provide any like obscene curses to the talent tree, so it's okay by that standard, but by every other standard I think this needs to do way more damage. I think this needs to do like 10,000 damage, 10,000 extra damage to enemies. Maybe that's right. Maybe that might be too much. I don't know. But 400 I think is just too low, especially since the dash uses a lot of energy. So you can only dash like 4 or 5 times. And I'm not sure if Blazing Dash stacks. So if it stacks, then maybe that's how I'm supposed to use it, but then you're just investing a ton of energy into Blazing Dash and not being able to use any of your other abilities until your energy comes back, which is probably fine if you have the Xenuric nodes unbound, but you know, that's a bit much, isn't it? Okay, and finally, Inner Gaze, energy for amps, increased energy for amps and Void Beam by 40%. This is actually pretty good. Basically, you have 140 energy to start off with. Cool! It basically means you get to shoot the Eidolon a bunch more times before you have to wait a little bit for your energy to regenerate, which is, it's good. It's good. It's good. There's nothing wrong with it. And Eternal Gaze increased the regeneration rate of energy for amps and Void Beam by 40%. Basically, it means that you get your energy back faster, which works really well with Inner Gaze. Ultimately, these two are... I only find it's a noticeable difference against the Eidolon, because sometimes I fight the Eidolon whilst having the Xenuric Focus Tree on, and I notice that I run out of energy, and then it takes a while for me to get back to shooting the shields down, whereas having Madurai, that actually makes a difference. So yeah, sometimes it sounds like it doesn't make a difference, but it actually makes a difference. So yeah, in conclusion, I think Madurai is in a decent place, but it definitely could use some improvements, and that might be the same with just about every other focus tree in the game. Probably Unairu. People say that Unairu for some reason does more damage than Madurai, and I guess it's possible with Unairu Wisp, but Madurai provides more damage. I think Madurai overall provides more damage, which is just really good. And the only other tree that I use extensively is Xenuric. I am trying to figure out how to use, if Lightning Dash is any good. It might not be good enough. I don't know. But yeah. So I hope you guys enjoy this. If you did, like the video, share it with your friends. Hopefully we can have a discussion about how to improve all of the other focus trees. I don't intend to make a review video about any of the other focus trees, because as you can imagine, I'm not even remotely close to maxing out any of the other ones. So yeah, maybe someone else can do a review video of it. But until then, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye!